The number of people doing business online has skyrocketed since the pandemic hit last year. So it has never been more important than now to make sure your business can be found online. Town Square can help you find more local customers with premium website services to help you grow your business faster when you visit mylocalcustomers.com. Don't wait. Visit mylocalcustomers.com today to learn more about how Town Square can help you grow your business. That's mylocalcustomers.com.
A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got 'em!
WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City.
Day after the Eagles just couldn't get a win. We are back here on GameNight here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live as always on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Whereas you can see above my head, I have this glaring light above my head. I have no idea when this light got changed or why it's so bright, but we're here stuck with it. And we're hanging out with you guys here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you can chime into the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. We are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. And, of course, you can text in 609-403-0973. We will dig deeper into the Eagles' loss with Martin Frank, Eagles NFL writer, coming out at 6:20 tonight. Sixers back in action tonight. And I'll get deeper into the Sixers throughout the show, but I got to start with the Eagles because, listen, yesterday's loss to me is another example of an unacceptable situation. To me, it's absolutely unacceptable that this team keeps finding ways to lose games they should win. This is now the second home game that they could have won, but because one of their coaches is just too stubborn to figure it out. I'm talking this time about Jonathan Gannon. I said last week that if the Eagles ran it back and did what they should do, they have a chance to win the game this week. And I'm not going to back off of that comment a single second. And yeah, I thought the Eagles were going to win this game. I thought they would finally win a game at home. They finally had the right formula. Well, the offense started out rough, but they figured it out. Great. They figured it out. But the defense didn't. And I don't know what to do anymore with this team. This is the most exasperating, infuriating, just ticks me off situation in the world. You have a defensive coordinator that we were told by all of the people who cover the NFL, all the experts, all the insiders, everybody who knows anybody, said Jonathan Gannon is an up-and-coming star in this league. This guy is one of the greatest defensive minds in the league. We had to hear for the longest time, for months, how this guy was going to be better than Jim Schwartz. And for 2 games, you started buying into it. You gave us this game against the Falcons, this perfect game plan. And then you gave us the 49ers game where the 49ers only scored 17 points. Just for reference sake, for those who don't know, when the Eagles defense held the 49ers to 17 points this season, did you know, and I didn't realize this until I looked it up myself, did you know that only one team has held the 49ers to less points this year than the Philadelphia Eagles? Yeah, only one team. That's the Arizona Cardinals. Back in week 5. The Cardinals held them again to 17 points, yesterday. Every other team who's not the Eagles or the Cardinals, the 49ers have scored more than 17 points against. But the Eagles, they held them there. So, you know this team is capable of this. Guess what? You all saw the Detroit game just like I did. This is an Eagles team now that has held opponents under 20 points in 4 games. Think about this. They only have 1 loss in those games. That's the 49ers game because Nick Sirianni couldn't get out of his own way because he was trying to be smarter than Kyle Shanahan. But we take out that game. Every other game they held teams under 20 points. They won those games. Won them. This defense is capable of doing this, but they don't do it consistently. And all the blame needs to fall on the defensive coordinator. Look, Sirianni can take all the blame he wants. He can say, my name's on the win-loss record. He can sit there and say that the buck stops with me. He can say whatever he wants to say. But he ain't calling the plays in game. Unless something changed that I don't know about. As far as I can see, as far as anybody else can see, Gannon is still got the play sheet in front of him, calling the defense down in and down out every week. You now have 5 quarterbacks who have passed for at least 80% on their passing against the Eagles defense. That ties an NFL record. And we're only 9 weeks into the season. What's going on here? I have no idea what is Gannon doing. And Sirianni can defend him all he wants. And I can't wait to hear what Gannon has to say tomorrow. Because whatever it is, I guarantee you it's going to register really deep in the red on the BS meter. Because that's who Gannon is at this point. That's who he is. And that's what the hype train is. Lori and every NFL insider who said this guy with some great defensive mind and all this garbage can go pound sand. They were all wrong. We have been lied to. We have been manipulated. We have been tricked. We have been run over the coals because Jeffrey Lurie, the Eagles owner, wanted to hire a young coaching staff that would be beholden to what he wanted. Because at the end of the day, the owner owns the team. You saw yesterday that the Eagles offense, once they course corrected, was out there scoring points. Meanwhile, the Chargers offense never punted thanks to the Eagles defense. Numerous 4th downs they converted. If they stopped them on one of those 4th downs on the final drive, maybe the Eagles had a chance to win the game. But instead, you gave up multiple 4th down conversions, a just gut-wrenching run up the middle, which I don't even understand what the heck they were doing on that play. And Sirianni, like I said, can say all he wants. Blame's on me, my bad, whatever he wants. But guess what, Sirianni? Unless you're calling the plays on defense, unless you're the one who's telling those cornerbacks to be 10, 15 yards off the receiver, unless you're the one who refuses to let the dogs hunt, then Sirianni, just shut up. I told you guys all week, in the Lions game, in the Falcons game, and in other games, the Eagles defense went hunting. You look at the games that they have won this year. I mentioned the Lions. I mentioned the Falcons. I mentioned the Panthers. And even throw in the 49ers. None of those teams had more than 310 total yards. Not passing, not rushing, total yards. In every game they have gotten crushed. It's been 380 yards or more. And in 3 of those games, against Derek Carr, Justin Herbert yesterday, and then Patrick Mahomes, they allowed more than 400 total yards. You know who does that? Big 12 defenses. like Oklahoma and Texas. Colleges do this stuff, not NFL teams. Gannon's a joke. He stops being aggressive. He's obsessed with running this zone defense that barely works for even his mentors like Mike Zimmer and Matt Eberflus. You know, they're calling for Zimmer's head in Minnesota. And the Indianapolis Colts, they're not a really good defense this year. That's who this guy learned defense from. Let me tell you, the last team that Eberflus worked for, that Gannon worked for, was under Eberflus. Let me run it back for you, the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are middle of the league in points against this year. They're 16th. They're 15th in the league in rush defense. They're 24th in the league in passing defense. Let me tell you what Mike Zimmer, the great Mike Zimmer, that I've had heard just garbage about for years, how great he is. You know what Mike Zimmer's teams have done since the year they lost to the Eagles? You know, they lost to the Eagles in the conference championship game. You might remember it. Here's what his defenses have done since that year. 16th. Sorry, I got the wrong category here. Here it is. 10th, 5th, 29th, and 17th in points allowed. That's Zimmer. Inconsistent, just like Gannon. Eberflus, a similar record. Inconsistent, just like Gannon. But we were told that this guy was better. The Eagles are bottom of the league. There's only a few teams that have fewer sacks than them. Eagles have 17 sacks on the year. Jim Schwartz's defense averaged just over 41 sacks a season. So for all of you who hated Jim Schwartz, this is your reckoning. You didn't want that guy anymore. You were tired of the wide nine. You didn't like it. Now you're stuck with this guy. And honestly, Jonathan Gannon looks better in wedding photos than he does as a football coach. Man, if I had to see that picture of him and Brandon Staley one more time, I'm going to puke. I don't care anymore. Oh, it's so cute they were in the same wedding together. Why does that matter in the grand scheme of things? The Eagles' defense is a laughing stock. And I'm supposed to be okay with it? No. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of CLC. I'll get to your guys' messages a little bit later in this hour. Keep them coming in. You can DM the show through 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Priority messaging thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. And, of course, we are live on Twitter at 973 ESPN, on YouTube at 973 ESPN. Before we hit the break, I know the Sixers played tonight. I want to hit this really quick. Joel Embiid will not play tonight. He might not play for a week plus. According to Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid's situation is very similar to what we saw with Tobias Harris, which is he's not doing great. He has symptoms for COVID-19. He didn't just test positive. He has symptoms. So he's expected to miss 10 days, or as soon as he's asymptomatic, he has to have 2 consecutive negative tests within 24 hours of each. That's the protocol. That's the rules. According to reports, Embiid is vaccinated. This is considered what the experts call a breakthrough case. Him and Tobias Harris both. So it seems like whatever Embiid got, he got it from the same source, or theoretically that Tobias got. So we hope the best for both of them. They get well soon. But no Embiid. So you're already playing shorthanded. So now no Embiid, no Harris. Korkmaz is banged up. Danny Green, he's been banged up. This team can't win without Embiid. And it makes this whole situation with Ben Simmons even more exasperating. Because You're now without your three best players, your three highest paid players, all because some people are just too stubborn. And it's all cute and all that Ben Simmons is now talking to the Sixers staff about his issues, but it's a little too late at this point. Sixers are doomed tonight. If you're going on FanDuel Sportsbook, just bet against Sixers. Just get it over with. We'll get more into Sixers a little bit later and your thoughts as well. But coming up next, Martin Frank, Eagles NFL writer for the Delaware County Times, joins us right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. It's week 10 of the 2021 season with the Eagles headed to Denver to face the Broncos.
It is Josh Sweat, and he's wiping the sweat from his brow.
Pre-game coverage begins this Sunday at 3 p.m. Maryland Mike call all the action at 4:05. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
College football Saturdays at Chickies and Pete's are on. Chickies and Pete's, your favorite local sports bar. Enjoy the college football $5 game day menu every Saturday starting at 11 a.m. World-famous crab fries, tasty roast pork sandwiches, Chickies boneless wings, and more. Plus Coors Light and Blue Moon ice-cold draft beer specials. Every college football Saturday at all Chickies and Pete's. Chickies and Pete's is a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the official caterer of Eagles training camp and the First Trust Bank Club at Lincoln Financial Field.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. So we'll get to back your thoughts and comments in just a bit. Keep them coming in at 609-403-0973 is the text board. Of course, you can DM us through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And as always, we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Joining us right now to get more into the Eagles' loss. Another game, another quarterback, had a big game. We have Martin Frank joining us on the phone line. You can follow him on Twitter at MFrankNFL. He is the Eagles NFL writer for the Delaware News Journal. Martin, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I just saw the Eagles canonize another quarterback into the Hall of Fame yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that where we're at now? It just feels like I don't even know where to start with this, because I feel like there's so many numbers out there that show how bad this defense has played. And it makes, to me, no sense, because in some games they play fine. And then games like yesterday, the Chargers didn't even punt the ball, Martin. There weren't even any punts.
It wasn't, and that wasn't the first time that's happened. They lost to the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't punt the ball either. In fact, the Chiefs scored touchdowns on 6 of their 7 possessions. The only time they didn't was an interception. The Chargers didn't punt, but Justin Herbert became the 5th quarterback to complete at least 80% of his passes against the Eagles. And the most amazing thing about that is before this season, like in all of Eagles history, dating back to 1933, that's only happened 8 times. And this year it's already happened 5 times in 9 games. I mean, that's just mind-blowing.
You know, we were told this offseason, and we were kind of led to believe that Jonathan Gannon, he's this great defensive mind. He's the next big thing. He's this and that. He's a prodigy, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like from week to week, I don't even know what we're getting. I feel like this guy insists on wanting to run this zone defense, and it's not working. And people want to point to the fact that he worked under Mike Zimmer and Eberflus over there in Indianapolis. But Martin, you go look at those teams, they're not having great years either defensively.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Gannon's defense is it tries to be like everything, like able to like switch into everything. So like if you're playing one team and you want to get a pass rush, maybe you go with a 4-3, or you can switch to a 3-4. Like you're supposed to have the players to do all that, to be able to do that. And the Eagles don't really have that right now, but like he's still trying to play that system. I know like a lot of people have said, you know, why don't you play to your players' strengths instead of trying to be all things all the time? And I mean, it's just not working right now. I mean, you look at the defensive line, I mean, they're having awful years. I mean, Javon Hargrave started off great. He had 6 sacks in his first 5 games. He hasn't had one since. I mean, Fletcher Cox can't get near the quarterback, and this guy's been a Pro Bowl player for the last 6 years. I mean, Derek Barnett only has 1 sack. Josh Sweat had a good game against the Lions, but he's only got like 3.5 sacks. They're just not getting any pressure on the quarterback. I mean, against Herbert yesterday, they didn't sack him, and they only hit him once, and that was by a cornerback. So, like, none of the defensive linemen even hit Herbert. So, I mean, he's got all day to throw, and he's getting the ball out quickly. The safeties are playing so far back that he has all this room underneath, and, you know, he's just picking them apart. I mean, you've seen that with, like, the good quarterbacks the Eagles have played. I mean, the only times they really had success is when they played, like, really bad teams like the Lions, the Carolina Panthers with Sam Darnold. it's crazy. Anytime you get a good quarterback, I mean, a good quarterback smart enough to pick apart that defense, and that's what we've seen this year.
You know, I always go back to as well, Martin, before you came on. I mentioned, Eagle fans, they were so mad at Jim Schwartz. They were so, annoyed with him about things. Well, under Jim Schwartz, the Eagles averaged just over 41 sacks a season. Right now, they have 17. So, be careful what you wish for, Eagle fans, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, there were a lot of things that Jim Schwartz did that, in hindsight, like, were pretty well. I mean, everyone used to get on Schwartz because he never really blitzed, but, he had 4 guys, rush the passer on the defensive line, and he'd always have, like, instead of playing cover 2, which Gannon plays most of the time, like allowing all the stuff underneath, like Schwartz would always have like a safety near the line of scrimmage to kind of either like cover a tight end or someone coming across the middle or help in run support. And the Eagles don't have that right now, and their linebackers are not very good to say the least. And, it's like they can't cover or they can't stop the run. And that's a really big problem. So, yeah, I mean, I can see why a lot of fans are pining for the days of Jim Schwartz. But, for the most part, Schwartz actually did a good job. I think he got kind of a bad label. But, I mean, compared to Gannon, anything is better than what we've seen so far.
Martin Frank joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at MFrank NFL on Twitter. Check out all of his coverage of the Eagles and the NFL over with the Delaware News Journal. Martin, you mentioned about the linebackers, and I just have to wonder, you mentioned just a little bit ago about how, Fletcher Cox, this is a guy who's been a top tier D tackle in this league. Javon Hargrave, we know what he's capable of. I just have to wonder how much what's going with the linebackers is the linebackers and how much of it is Gannon not putting him in position to be successful.
It's both. I mean, the Eagles have always kind of devalued the linebacker position. I mean, like you go back, the last time they picked one in the first round was 1979. They've let veterans like D'Amico Ryans, Jordan Hicks, Nigel Bradham go, and they replace them with guys kind of off the scrap heap. I mean, you look at the guys who are starting now. TJ Edwards was an undrafted free agent. Davion Taylor was a third-round pick in 2020, but he was pretty raw, and the Eagles knew coming in that he would need a lot of time to adjust to the NFL just because he didn't play much in high school and everything. He's kind of new to the sport. But, I mean, they like the fact that he's got speed. But, if you could have all the speed in the world, if you don't have the instincts, it's not going to do you any good, and that's kind of what we're seeing. So, they're going with a lot of young linebackers who aren't very experienced, don't really have a pedigree. I mean, you look at the Cowboys, they drafted Micah Parsons in the first round, and he stepped right in, has been one of the top linebackers in the NFL. The Eagles have never really invested in that position, and it's hurting them right now because, Gannon's relying on them to help in run support, and he's also relying on them to, cover receivers and tight ends and running backs across the middle, and they're just, it's like they're running around with, like chickens with their heads cut off. I mean, right now they don't know where they're looking, and teams are just exploiting that. And it's not going to change until the personnel changes. And, that's another issue going into the off season, obviously. But, what we're seeing right now, it's been pretty brutal to watch.
I don't know what to do with Gannon. I mean, I know we're stuck with him. I know he's the guy for at least a while because this coaching staff was, for all intents and purposes, handpicked by the owner. The owner isn't just going to throw up his hands and fire everybody after 9 weeks, or even one season potentially. So, can Gannon improve, Martin? Can Gannon become a better defensive play caller and planner, or are the Eagles and their fans just stuck with him as he is?
Well, I mean, there are a couple of things you can look at. Number one is, even in this last game against the Chargers, I mean, they blitzed probably as much, if not more, than they have all season. And he's kind of shown a willingness, every now and then, like he'll only have one safety deep as opposed to 2. So have another one of those guys kind of helping in support, closer to the line of scrimmage. But I think like the biggest change is going to have to come in the offseason. I mean, he wants a certain type of player. He wants a safety who can be kind of like a hybrid linebacker who can cover all over the field. And they just don't have that right now. And that's where, you could have or the Eagles could have as many as 3 first-round draft picks, and they got to use some of that capital on defensive players, whether it's, a stud defensive end, whether it's a safety or cornerback or even a linebacker. I mean, they got to focus on defense during the offseason. I mean, they could also go after free agents. They'll have money this year as opposed to this past year when they were kind of on a tight budget. So, I think the biggest change is going to come in the offseason. But, yeah, I mean, there are things Gannon can do, and I think he's tried to do as the season's gone along. But, every now and then you get a quarterback like, Herbert. They faced some of the best in the NFL, like Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. They faced Tom Brady. They faced, Dak Prescott. They got another game against Prescott coming up. So, it's, these guys are pros. They know what they're doing, And the one good thing about the Eagles as the season goes along, I mean, you look at the Saints come in right now. Jameis Winston's out for the year, so they don't really have a strong quarterback. They play the Giants twice, the Jets. They play Washington twice. So, they're top. So it's possible that defense could actually do better as the season goes along. But, it's just when you play against a good quarterback like the Eagles have, pretty often early in the season, it can go pretty sour pretty quickly, as we saw.
Sirianni last night and today tried to, say the buck stops with me. He said stuff like, the win-loss record, it's on me, not on Gannon. And he tried to say all the right things, unlike when he threw him under the bus 2 weeks ago. But, right. I don't hate Sirianni. I don't think he's a bad guy, but I think Sirianni is also still learning how to be a coach. And part of coaching is trying to figure out the difference between how do I take the blame and how I deflect the blame. And I don't think that, him saying those things is helping the situation, because at the end of the day, I think Sirianni actually did a good job at adjusting in game yesterday and saying, all right, well, we started the game out with wasn't working. I'm going to go back to the run game, and they had success. And it seems like Sirianni is at least learning a little bit. I would just like to see that same level of learning from his defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, and you make a good point. I mean, Sirianni's an offensive guy. His background is on offense. He was an offensive coordinator with the Colts. He was a quarterback's coach with the Chargers. He was a wide receivers coach. He played wide receiver in college. So, I mean, offense is his thing. And, he's not the first coach to be like that, obviously. I mean, when the Eagles hired Andy Reid in 1999, he was an offensive guy. But, Reid knew enough to turn the defense over to a veteran guy like Jim Johnson. And Sirianni instead turned it over to a not veteran guy in Jonathan Gannon, who's probably as inexperienced as Sirianni is. So, they're both kind of like learning as they go. And, for everything the Eagles did wrong yesterday, and as bad as that game was, I mean, you can't really argue with his play calling and with the way Jalen Hurts has kind of improved as the season's gone along. And, Devontae Smith, I mean, as good as, the Chargers couldn't cover him yesterday. I mean, he was running all through their secondary in the second half. So, I mean, there's pieces to build on offensively, and that's Sirianni's strength. It's just on defense that, Gannon is kind of a little bit behind the curve in that regard. And maybe it's because, he doesn't have the players on defense that Sirianni has on offense. And, maybe for that you go all the way up to the front office with Howie Roseman. But, that's something they're going to have to fix in the offseason. I mean, I don't think you're going to see like a major change, the rest of this season defensively. It's just, if they're playing a bad team, they can take it, with a bad quarterback, they can take advantage of that. And they have some games left against a lot of those teams. So, it's going to be a learning experience. And I think in the offseason, you're going to see a lot of changes, especially defensively.
Well, you just mentioned the front office, and I feel like one of the things that's overlooked is, people can blame well, Eagle fans love to blame Howie Roseman for things. But at the end of the day, Howie Roseman has a job, Sirianni has a job, Gannett, they all have a job because of the owner. And I think that there's a hesitancy from certain segments of the fan base to want to blame the owner because, the owner is kind of out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. At the end of the day, Howie's doing what he's doing because the owner's signing off. It's not like Howie's just gone rogue the last couple of years.
True. I mean, that's all very true. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie is very into analytics, and he likes he's kind of told us in press conferences that he wants a modern offense. A modern offense is an offense that throws the ball all the time. Throws the ball up and down the field and scores 30 to 40 points a game. Kind of like the Chiefs, theoretically. So that's what he wants. And, when you're scoring 30, 40 points a game, you're devoting all your resources on offense, and you're not really devoting as much to defense because you're hoping to outscore the other team. So, that's what he wants. And like you said, Howie Roseman is his guy, and Howie's going to carry out what he wants. And then the coaches have to carry out what Howie gives them in, either from the draft, trades, or free agency. And, when you look at the situation they're in now, I mean, they could have 3 first-round picks next year, and that's product of Howie Roseman. I mean, you can criticize Howie all you want, but I mean, he did put them in a good position to address a lot of their needs in the draft next year. Now, whether or not Roseman can find the right players is another story, and we probably don't have enough time, to discuss all of that because. There's a track record there where Howie hasn't really done very well on a lot of those picks. But, I mean, he at least gets them in position to make those picks. It's just a question of finding the right guys. So that's kind of what we're going to have to see in the offseason. I mean, all this stuff, I mean, this is a critical offseason for the Eagles. I mean, they have to address a lot of their issues, and they have to build with young players while somehow keeping a few veterans around and using some of their money on free agents who can make immediate impacts and everything. So, there's a lot of stuff going on that's going to be going on this offseason. It's going to be a pretty interesting one for the Eagles, that's for sure.
Martin, one more before I let you go. I appreciate you joining us over on your column at DelawareOnline.com. You mentioned the fact people can blame Hurts if they want, but he's not. He's basically very low on the list of Eagles problems. And I'm glad you wrote that because we live in a world where people want to blame the quarterback for things that may have nothing to do with them. And I feel like people forget that football is a team sport. And at the end of the day, if Hurts can go out there and have a good game and have a bad game, it may or may not impact the team's winning or losing. And to me, I think overall, Hurts has been an upgrade this year of what we saw with Wentz last year. And to me, Wentz lost 3 games by himself for the Eagles in my eyes last year. And to me, Hurts is not losing you any games. And this idea that Hurts is the problem to me just seems like a bunch of people who are clamoring for pie in the sky. Because guess what? People like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, they don't grow on trees.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you've seen this year with Jalen Hurts. He's gotten better as the season goes along. Yeah, there's still some here or there, you can kind of nitpick at things that he didn't do. I mean, the game yesterday, he missed, just barely missed Dallas Goedert on a deep pass on their first drive. He kind of made a bad pass in the end zone to Devontae Smith that, at the end of the half that led to a field goal instead of a touchdown. But I mean, the fact is that the defense is so bad that Hurts has to be perfect on those plays. And I don't think really any quarterback is going to be perfect every game. I mean, maybe except for the ones who play the Eagles defense, like Justin Herbert yesterday. But still, the point is Hurts is getting better. He brings an element to the offense with his running ability that, pretty much any quarterback other than Lamar Jackson and maybe a few others here and there don't have. And that's a dangerous weapon. I mean, I looked at last week, the total yards. Hurts has had as many, if you project, he's had 13 starts. If you project it over a 16, 17 game season, he's got as many yards, throwing and running as Justin Herbert had in his rookie year last year. it's just a different way of doing things, and that's something the Eagles fans kind of have to get used to because, Hurts can get yards in so many different ways. He's not a conventional quarterback. In fact, he's very unique in what he can do. And it's just a different way to skin the cat. And the Eagles have to figure out, if they can kind of make him into a decent pocket passer to go along with his running ability, or if he's just going to be one of those guys who isn't very accurate. And if that's the case, then they have to look elsewhere. But, I think they're encouraged by what they're seeing. And I think yesterday was a prime example of how good he could be. I mean, he did not lose that game yesterday. I mean, that was pretty much on the defense, and they probably wouldn't have had a chance if he didn't play well. So, I would like to see – I think they're going to give Hurts the full season. I mean, people have kind of said, oh, they should bring Gardner Minshew if they fall out of it, but there's nothing really to see with him. I mean, Hurts is the guy you're evaluating, and you want to give him the full season. So I think that's kind of how they're going to go as the season goes along, and we'll know, like, January 9th after that last game if he's going to be the guy going forward or not. So, we'll just have to see how that develops.
Follow him on Twitter at MFrankNFL, Eagles NFL writer for the Delaware News Journal. Joined us right here on Game Night on 97.3. And as I mentioned, check out his latest column over at the DelawareOnline.com about the Eagles and the defense and the, very frustrating loss for the Eagles at home. They're still winless at home, in part thanks to that lovely defense out there for Jonathan Gannon and the team. Martin, always appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, Josh, and anytime.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank and CLC. We'll get back to you guys. Thoughts and comments on the other side. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. DMS to the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Here's Tyrese Maxey on the drive, underhand scoop, he got it.
The Sixers host the New York Knicks. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Still to come on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers basketball at the top of the hour as they take on, well, they're going to try to take on a Knicks team without Joel Embiid. Danny Green's supposed to be back tonight, so we'll see how that goes. Really. Great basketball still to come on 97.3 ESPN. Look, I'm not saying the Sixers can't win. I'm just expecting them not to, all right? Speaking of winners, we gave you the FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the week last week. Rose Namajunas hit that over the weekend. It was plus 104 when we grabbed it. Of course, you can get on all the action over at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Football, basketball, UFC, whatever you want to get in on. It's time to experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get in on all the action you love at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, right off the boardwalk. Score big every day at Bally's in Atlantic City with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yeah, we hit the Rose Namajunas pick outright. We hit the parlay. Gaethje, Namajunas, Usman, Frankie Edgar, flash knockout. Didn't win that, but we move on. 2-1 on the UFC card is still a winning night. I also told you guys about take the Wake Forest and North Carolina over. Hit that as well. So we try to give you some bets thanks to FanDuel Sportsbook and Bally's Hotel Casino in Atlantic City. Get to your guys' comments right now before we get out of here. 609-403-0973 is where Mike from OC chimes in. Says, Gannon is a bum. Way to be aggressive at the end of the play. You play serious prevent defense. Thanks, Barnett, for nothing. Couple things there. One, Mike, the problem with Gannon is that he thinks he's not being aggressive. He doesn't get it. I generally don't think Gannon understands the kind of defense he's playing. I think Gannon is clueless. I think Gannon completely does not understand that his style of defense is not winning football. I think he thinks, assumingly, that, well, I've seen other people run this defense, I can run it too. And it's great in theory. Like everything Martin Frank said earlier about how Gannon wants to have a versatile defense where he can ebb and flow from week to week, matchup to matchup. It sounds great in theory, but execution's a whole different story. And I don't see them executing at all. And, Barnett, I am so frustrated with the Barnett thing because two reasons. One, you're stuck with him because no Brandon Graham means you're stuck playing this dude way more than you want to. And remember, Barnett was supposed to be a quote-unquote Joe Douglas pick. That was supposed to be the first big pick by Joe Douglas in his first year as the head of player personnel and assisting Howie Roseman with the draft. He wanted Barnett, supposedly he wanted Pumphrey, and a lot of the guys that supposedly Joe Douglas wanted have not worked out here in Philadelphia. And you got to wonder, if you had to run it back, who's making these decisions? People don't blame Howie Roseman all they want, but who's making these decisions? Who's giving the advice? Who's the one telling Howie and Lori these are good ideas? Because they're not working out at all. One more text to squeeze in here before we get out of here. Jeff over on the YouTube stream says, man, the Eagles and we as fans are getting laughed at. Hey, man, listen. This comes with the territory. It's supposed to be a transition year. We were told 100 times we're transitioning from one era to another. We were warned this might happen, but it still stinks. It still absolutely, positively stinks the way this defense is playing. Absolutely bad. Just pitiful. All right, we'll be back tomorrow here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. Sixers basketball next. They're probably going to lose by 10 or more points. No Embiid, no Harris. Good luck to the Sixers.